Hello and welcome to the Audit Committee meeting of Thursday, June 6th, 2013. We'll call the meeting to order. First off, we wanted to introduce and welcome our new committee member, Arnie Martinez. Is that how you say your last name? Martins. Where did I get? Okay. Arnie, welcome. Arnie is our newest member. Our board is finally complete and full, even though we're missing a couple of members today. I think Councilor Aguilar is in the building. She'll be here, if I saw that right. Any questions for Arnie? Arnie, say hello.
It's good to be here.
All right, well, welcome. All right, our first order of business would then be to approve the minutes from Thursday, April 4th. If somebody would like to make a motion.
So moved.
We have a motion.
Second. Southgard.
Okay, thank you. Okay, all those in favor of the approval of the minutes of Thursday, April 4th, 2013, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Very good. Thank you. Welcome, Councilor Intiman and Councilor Aguilar. All right, we'll go on to item number 4, move into reports and updates. Rich has several updates. There's really no reports today, just some updates. So, Rich, if you want to start off with.
Yeah, we have a PowerPoint, so I'll just narrate that. Kim will go through the slides here. So, last year we did a fraud risk assessment. We had done one in, I think it was our very first project in 2007, and this is 5 years later. We did an update, and we have a number of action steps. But the reason this is such a big deal is that fraud continues to happen. I just saw the headline from the state of Vermont, which is probably about the size of South Dakota. The state auditor there had reported to a legislative committee in Vermont that embezzlement was almost a cottage industry in Vermont. And he said in the last 5 years, Vermont municipalities had lost $3 million in 10 different embezzlements. And the twin enablers or causes were community trust and flimsy internal controls. So next slide, please. And just to show we're not picking on city clerks or city finance officers, this just came out in April. It was an internal auditor. This was the former treasurer of the internal auditor DC chapter. That's a volunteer position, but he was apparently charged with stealing $50,000 from the chapter. And at the time of the theft, his day job was director of audit services for Prince William County, Virginia. So as far as I know, he's still under indictment. I don't think it's gone any further than that. So anyway, so we're going to go through the various action steps we identified in last year's report. We had identified doing more cash handling audits, doing asset verifications, which would be, we're talking about fixed assets and inventory audits, unannounced cash counts, training for management teams, instituting more anti-fraud measures for our outside organizations, and I'll go over in detail here when we, and then more publicizing of the fraud hotline, looking at the city bank accounts. Next slide. Reviewing the employee dishonesty insurance policy that the city carries, doing a checklist of segregation of duties for important functions, monitoring the tone at the top, providing ethics training for city employees, and then updating our list of revenue. So next slide. So we just started the Park and Rec cash handling audit this week. We'd done one, I think, in 2009. This will be a follow-up to see what they're doing. Park and Rec gets a lot of cash, as you can imagine, at the community centers, the swimming pools, all the adult rec leagues that they have. And from what we saw at the meeting this week, Park and Rec took our original report, and they had reviewed it 2 years ago and done some updates to procedures and reviewed it once more. So they were very impressed with their attitude towards that audit report from 2009. So this will be a follow-up. Danette is assigned to that audit. And we'll continue to include cash handling audits in our annual audit plans. So We'll begin the unannounced cash count sometime this year. We'll discuss with the directors, how we will be doing that at their weekly meeting. And we'll also be doing some verifications of fixed assets and non-capital inventory at various departments. Okay, next. I met with Human Resources to begin arranging for a fraud expert to provide fraud awareness training for city directors and management teams. Ran into a little glitch. The person I had in mind from Ide Bailey had just retired in April, but I was able to get a cell number and actually talk to him today. And he is available, but he also would get me a name of somebody from Ide Bailey too, one of his colleagues that might be interested. So what we're thinking of is providing a training for the management teams, like a 1-hour training session, having several sessions so people can fit it in their schedule. Just make them aware of how fraud happens, why it happens, that sort of thing. That was something we identified when we did that fraud risk assessment. Nobody ever had any training on fraud awareness, so that's one of the best fraud control measures you can have, is having your management team be aware of how it happens, what can prevent it. We have a lot of contracts and organizations. We have a lot of organizations that manage city assets. For example, the Washington Pavilion, the zoo, the golf courses, the event center. These are not city employees, but they're a city facility, and they're under contract to manage it. And they're outside of our normal governance and control framework. So we'll begin commencing a number of anti-fraud procedures this year. Examples might be reviewing bank reconciliations, looking at segregation of duties. And some of these organizations have a CPA firm that does an annual audit, so we want to look at the management letter to see if there's any internal control deficiencies noted and what the, say, board of directors is doing to mitigate that. Okay. We have a fraud and waste abuse hotline. We've had that, I think, since about 2008. That's a toll-free number that city employees can call. We want to do another letter. And last time we did a letter, we sent it to the employee's home address, and it was signed by the mayor and the chair of the city council. So we'd like to work with the mayor and the chair of the council to review that letter that was written a number of years ago, and then see if we need to update that letter. And then once that letter is approved and signed, we'll mail it out to the city employees. It's basically lets them know what the purpose of the hotline is, how it works, and it's the purpose of having the mayor and the chair of the council sign it is to show that we have high level of support for that hotline. So. And then we'll also do some site visits as internal auditors to make sure that there's a placard on the bulletin board in like the employee break rooms, and where it has the number written down, and to make sure that that is still up. Okay. We're going to be working with the city finance team and then probably Ide Bailey to identify all the bank accounts that belong to the city, and we want to figure out, well, what's the purpose of that bank account, who reconciles that account, and then who has the signature authority, just make sure we have an updated list. Next slide. The city has the required coverage under state law for employee dishonesty insurance. That coverage, though, hasn't changed, I think, in about 10 years or so. So we're going to meet with Central Services and Risk Management to decide is that enough coverage that we have right now, or do we need to have more coverage. I think right now there's a blanket policy, I think, of $25,000 per employee. And then for the finance director, I think it's like $250,000. Whatever the state law requires, they have that coverage, but perhaps we need to adjust that. So we'll have that discussion. We'll also be completing a segregation of duties checklist this year. We'll be working at finance on some of the key functions like payroll, treasury and investments, and financial statement prep. That's a key financial control. Usually when you have fraud in municipalities, usually that's something they lack. There's no segregation of duties. One person is doing a process from beginning to end. Next. And tone at the top, that's a term that's used by internal auditors to refer to the example set by managers and leaders in an organization. And that can be a key factor. You can have really good, what we call hard controls in place, but if the tone at the top is poor, it can set a bad example for employees. So one way to monitor this is to look at that annual city employee survey and look at the results of that. We can share the results of that survey with the audit committee. That's an anonymous survey. Employees can fill it out. There's many questions out there on that survey. So, ethics training. This is separate from fraud awareness training. Last time we did citywide ethics training for all the employees was in December of 2007. So that was over 5 years ago. So that's overdue. We'll meet with the city attorney to see if we can arrange for that training again. And another risk that we identified in our fraud risk assessment last year was a term called orphan checks. That's money that managers may not be aware of. It's just kind of that miscellaneous revenue stream, money that comes in from various different sources that's just sort of falls out of the sky, so to speak. We'll probably try to identify all the revenue streams that the city receives and where it comes in, and just get a comprehensive list. And so we'll be working with management on that one. So that's just gives you an idea what we're doing this year and how we're addressing those action steps from that report from last year. So if there's any questions, I'd be happy to try and answer those.
Ann?
On the employee survey, do you have an opportunity to add questions to that survey that would target what you're interested in getting out of it?
And I had talked to Bill O'Toole, our HR director, and I had suggested a couple of questions that we could kind of narrow it down to that tone at the top type of questions. Something like, yes or no, my manager takes fraud seriously, or we so you could ask a couple of questions that get to that heart of the matter. Does the manager walk the talk? And some of the questions are dealing with, how happy are you as a city employee, or those kind of things. They've only done one. I think it was in either 2011 or last year, and I saw the results. They're very favorable. And they were shared with all the employees. The results were shared at a employee forum down at the Orpheum Theater. So, so hopefully we'll continue doing that survey on an annual basis, and we'll show the audit committee the results of that employee survey. So,
Any other questions for Rich on the fraud assessment? Okay, very good, Rich. Let's go on to training in Sioux Falls.
okay, we got back to the end of April. We got a very good session there, a one-day session here at the. They have it at the Jurstead Center at the Good Sam on 57th Street. It's our local IIA chapter, and we got a big, thick book that we that our trainer went through. It's kind of basically kind of back to the basics, internal audit 101, but it was good. I mean, there was probably 30 auditors there, not only our group, but a lot of the local bank auditors were there, and got a very good training from a consultant that was previously employed by Wells Fargo, many years of experience. So it was real good. We did some assertiveness training. We got every topic from field work to work papers to assertiveness training to everything. It was kind of a potpourri of all kinds of internal audit topics. He kind of boiled a 2-day seminar down to 8 hours, but it was good. So that's about it there.
Any questions on that training seminar? I think I heard Rich say potpourri.
Yeah.
Nice.
All right.
Nice. All right, very good. Let's move on to the training in Nashville.
Yes, at the first early May, Danette and I were down in Nashville for the annual the national conference. So I'll let her do a minute or two on. I just stayed for one day for the peer review, and then she stayed for the whole conference. So,
like Rich said, the first day we spent on just peer review, preparing ourselves for the upcoming peer review that we want to have performed on us, and I'll let Rich talk a little more about that. But the next 2 days were approximately 200 local government auditors from across the United States and Canada, and basically worldwide, actually, but mostly from North America. There was 4 general sessions that I attended, ranging from arson investigations, using data to manage audit risk, the cloud, using the cloud to store data, and then a new government impact act called the Data Act. and how that would impact local government. And then you could choose various sessions, and I chose 8 different ones covering such topics as conducting difficult audit interviews, creating an ethical culture, engagement risk assessment, dashboarding and how to increase the visibility of audit recommendations, a couple of fraud topics, managing third-party risk, and then challenges to auditor independence. It was a very good seminar. Glad I got the opportunity and did a lot of networking and realized that a lot of other city auditors face the same challenges we do and are doing the same audits we're doing and everything, so it was very good.
And just like to mention a few items from our peer review training on that Sunday. We would like to request the peer review team to come to Sioux Falls in the latter half of next year, of 2014. And talking to the peer review coordinator, she said they would prefer that I would be part of a peer review team before we have our peer review. So she gave me a form, and then I would like to have the chair of the audit committee just sign that, and that shows the coordinator that I have, that I'm authorized to be a part of a peer review team to go somewhere else. There would be no cost to the city except my time, and that would take a week. I'd be gone for a week. Normally the peer review team would arrive in the city on a Sunday, and they'd be there until Friday, and then they'd leave. And I'd be a part of either one other person or 2 other persons. It's usually a 2 or 3 person peer review team that goes audits another local government. And the purpose of the peer review is to see that you are complying with the audit standards. It's either the yellow book or the red book. We use the red book here. A lot of shops use what they call the yellow book. That's what the federal auditors use. And then they have a report at the end of that site visit. They look at a sample of your audit reports. They'll probably talk to some audit committee members. They'll look at the charter. They'll look at your policy and procedure manual. They may talk to a few directors. And so that's kind of what the peer review team. So just to let you know, at some point, if I volunteer, they would probably let me know, we'd like you to go audit, at a certain city as part of a team. And so I'd have to be gone for a week. As far as the airfare and the per diem and that sort of thing, the city that's getting the peer review covers that. They pay for that. So there's no cost to the city other than my time. Now, when the team comes to Sioux Falls, I plan to put in our budget request for next year, for 2014, about $5,000. That's the anticipated cost for 3 people to come to Sioux Falls. It could be less, it could be 2 people. It's just kind of a round number that they suggested to cover the airfare and the per diem and the hotel and that sort of thing. If we were to have some other group do that, like a Big 4 accounting firm or the Institute of Internal Auditors, it could easily cost 2 to 3 times that amount. It could easily be 10 to 20,000 for that sort of service. So it's a real service to the members of the Association of Local Government Auditors that they provide that. So as I said, we've been meeting as a team to go over our policy and procedure manual, and it was helpful to go through that training. And a lot of the training consisted of actual real case scenarios. They would, you'd sit at a table with a bunch of other auditors. They'd give you, okay, this is what a peer review team found when they went to this city. What do you think? Do they meet the standards or don't they meet the standards? Discuss. And then we discuss, and then then the facilitator would say, well, here's the actual results. And so that was very good to have real world examples of what it's like to be on a peer review. And just going through that process as a peer reviewer helps you prepare to be peer reviewed. So was there anything else? Do you have any questions about the peer review process? We've talked about it before, but
Any questions of Danette or as well, any concerns about my signing that peer review team for Rich to volunteer for that? Any concerns there? Okay. Okay, very good. Let's Move on to item D with the update on status of various audit reports.
Okay, we have a couple of draft reports finished. I finished that ambulance service contract, the REMSA board. That's finished. We have a response back from management. They had asked to defer that till the August 1st meeting. We still haven't met with Rural Metro, so the plan is for me, the executive director of REMSA, and the city health director to meet with the manager of Rural Metro, go over that audit report, and then we'll present that on August 1st to the audit committee. So that's pretty much done. And then Danette completed the water reclamation industrial billing audit, and we were expecting to have that on the agenda. In fact, I had it on the first agenda that I gave to Greg, and then I had to take that off. With the flooding and the rain that we got over Memorial Day weekend, the water rec team was their attention was diverted, understandably. So I took the liberty of giving them an extension. They should have a response back actually about a week from now, a written response. We had several audit findings, and so we'll just have that on the August 1st meeting. Right now, as I mentioned, we have that park and rec cash handling. We just met with park and rec management on Wednesday. That's underway. And then Kim is working on the real estate, city-owned real estate audit. And so we're just kind of going through our annual audit plan, making good progress on that. So I think that's about it on the various audit projects we're working on right now. So,
any questions on those items? Okay, very good. Move on to open discussion. Before we start that too much, I wanted to make sure that Councillor Intamin and Councillor Aguilar got to meet Arnie. Did you guys meet him before or somewhere? Well, welcome. We're thankful to have the committee finally fully staffed, even though Rex, who recommended him, isn't here.
Excused absence.
Yes. So anyway, now you know who the rest of the committee is. Any other open discussion items that anybody has? Anybody, any thoughts?
yeah, I just have one if nobody else has anything. The city's going through they call this the COOP, Continuity of Operations Plan. Risk management is kind of honchoing this thing. So all the departments are required to complete a questionnaire, and then they'll have a comprehensive city continuity plan. And that means that if, say, for some reason, City Hall had to be shut down because of, various reasons, a natural disaster, let's say the mailroom got a suspicious package, and powder was in the building and they had to evacuate the building for a few days, lose power, whatever, any kind of contingency like that. What would the city do to continue operations? Which operations do we have to keep going? How would we accomplish that? So that's what the purpose of that is. Now, we, as the city council, as a department, we got a request to fill that out, and then talking to Lori, our city clerk, she said, well, you guys are maybe a little different than the clerks, so maybe I'll have you just fill that out as auditors, because kind of what you do is a little different than what the city clerks have to do, so I will look through that. But as we're talking with our staff members, internal audit isn't something you have to do. I mean, you can shut down for a few days. And actually, we went through this last summer in this building when we had they were working on the roof, and we had fumes from the adhesive material that they used on the roof that was penetrating the building and was making people sick. So we had to send people home for a few days. Kind of a weird thing. You remember that, David? Yeah, so I mean, things, you think, well, how would this ever happen? Well, it happened to us. And so we're thinking, well, we probably don't need internal auditors. We could get by for a week or so if we had to. HR would have to figure out, do we get paid, how that works. That's an HR issue. But if it were to be longer than that, maybe we could, it would be technically feasible to do remote access from home on a computer and get some work done. That'd be probably something I have to talk to IT and see if that's a possibility. If it would be an extended absence, like we couldn't get in the building for 2 weeks for whatever reason. But anyway, that's what all the city departments are working on right now, and that project should be wrapped up sometime this year. So.
Okay, very interesting. Anything else, anybody? All right, well, then I would take a motion to adjourn. All right, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Very good. Thank you. We are adjourned.